Hello, and welcome to the Movie Universe. I'm your host, Movie Fan. Today, I'll be talking about a very old show, Gilligan's Island. Now, I think just about everyone's at least a little familiar with Gilligan's Island because it's had such a big impact in pop culture that people are still talking about it, even though it only lasted for about 3 years. Not to mention, they keep showing it on MeTV and TV Land and all those other channels that show old TV shows. Now, Gilligan's Island, as most of us are very much aware, it's a story about 7 castaways that wind up on a deserted island. And pretty much they just make their home there and they go through all kinds of crazy shenanigans and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they keep trying to find a way to get off the island. There really isn't much to say. Most of the time, they're trying to find a way to get off the island, but something always ends up happening where they can't get off. What usually ends up happening is that Gilligan ends up messing everything up. However, there are some times that, they're just on the island and weird things are happening, and they find that there's all kinds of animals on the island that give them a little trouble, or the occasional cannibal or something like that. Probably the most recurring theme was how there's always visitors coming to the island. I mean, they find like a jungle boy, a long-lost pilot, Russian cosmonauts, a music group ends up landing there so they could be alone. And nobody gets them off the island. They just leave them there high and dry. Jerks. But usually they just sit around going through some pretty crazy shenanigans, usually caused by Gilligan, because he's the big goof in the group. Other than that, there's really not much to say about it, because the show was canceled by season 3. There was an attempt to revive the show, but it didn't pan out very well. There was even a few television movies, one in particular entitled Rescue from Gilligan's Island, where the castaways do get off the island, but have trouble reintegrating back into society. So, obviously, it's one of those kind of stories where there's really no point in doing it, which I think speaks for itself as to why this special is not remembered at all. But even though it was short-lived, the characters are still very well known. Like Gilligan, even though he screws everything up, he's a likable guy. Then you have the skipper, who was basically in charge of everything. He would do everything he could to try to get everyone off the island, or at least make it comfortable. Then you have the millionaire and his wife. There's not much to say about them. They're high society. They're the kind of people that us common folks love to hate because they're rich, they're wealthy, they rub it in every step of the way, and we always get a good laugh when something happens to them. And of course you got the professor. He seems to know just about everything there is, and he's able to build all kinds of things like a workable car, a washing machine, and all kinds of stuff, and yet he cannot devise a way for them to get off the island. And he cannot seem to figure out how to fix the boat. It's a conundrum. The last two are probably the ones we all recognize the most. Marianne, played by Dawn Wells, who is constantly on MeTV these days, hosting The Summer of Me. She was a cute character, she was very helpful, kind of your average typical young girl. That's about all I can say about her. And then there's Ginger, the movie star, played by Tina Louise, who, to the best of my knowledge, never really got into too many movies at all. The only real big movie she was in was God's Little Acre. And boy, she bared quite a bit in that picture, I'll tell you that. But that's for another time. The characters, the show, everything, it's very well remembered. It comes up all the time in pop culture. There isn't a TV show or a special or anything that does not bring up Gilligan's Island at least once. It may have been short-lived, it may have been repetitive, it may have been kind of a goofy comedy, but it's still very well remembered, that it actually does have a place in pop culture. This is Movie Fan, signing off.